Hello OTCers. I've just finished watching Milan 1, Inter 1 in the first leg of Coppa Italia semi-final here at San Siro. And I've just come away with it with the same feeling that I've often come away with when I've watched the Milan derby this season. Milan are the most confusing team in European football at the moment. And why do I say that? Well, firstly, I think you have to look at the positions which they came in to this game in Serie A at the moment. We know Inter are the best team in Italy and they're top of the table at the moment by 3 points from Napoli. Milan in ninth, get your head around that after having a busy last summer transfer window and a busy January transfer window as well, with Santiago Jimenez coming in, with Joao Felix coming in on loan. And they proved it all again tonight why they're so confusing, because this is now a fourth Milan derby this season that Milan are unbeaten in. 2 wins and 2 draws. They've won a Supercoppa Italiana amongst that as well. The best result they had under Paulo Fonseca, certainly in the league. Of course, they won away at Real Madrid, the Champions League, was the win they got in the away game in Serie A. So it's remarkable to me that Milan consistently make it difficult for Inter, who are so good, despite the fact they just can't string results together consistently this season. Now, I guess we saw a window into both sides of that equation tonight, why they're really good in these individual games and perhaps why they're struggling a little bit more overall. Now, of course, if you look at Milan's difficult results this season, they've come under 2 different coaches, Paulo Fonseca and Sergio Conceição, his compatriot, who's the man on the touchline at the moment. 2 Portuguese coaches, but 2 very, very different personalities. But yet they've got broadly the same performances and results out of this Milan team, which is remarkable, really. There's a lot of potential there. I think if you go back over not just the last 2 windows that we just talked about, but recent times generally, Milan have done a lot of sensible business. And I think you look at the squad and it looks pretty decent. But I think if you look at the problems they've had this season, the main problem really is based around the players and their 2 star players, Theo Hernandez and Rafael Leao. Now, both of those started tonight, not given these days that Rafael Leao starts, because Sergio Conceição is using intermittent carrot and stick with him. He said when he first came into the club that Rafael Leao has got the quality to be the best in the world in his position. He reiterated that at the weekend after not starting him, but said, he needs to demand more of himself, and I need to demand more of him as well. And there were moments tonight where you saw Leao produce moments where you thought he's better than anyone else on this pitch. His touch, his control, the first meaningful move of the game was him speeding down the right-hand side of Inter's defence and creating a bit of space and creating a chance. He almost scored a brilliant winner just near the end where he got the ball from Fofana on the left-hand side, his normal spot, curved a shot right past the far post of Martinez, didn't quite go in, and it could have been the moment that made it even better for Milan tonight. But there's a lot of gestures that don't really work in between. There's a lot of bits where he drifts in and out of the game, and I'm not really seeing the click between him and Theo at the moment, which is really disappointing because they've dovetailed so well together in the past. So to see them not be able to run the game is a bit of a letdown. And Rafael Leao, you want to see him grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and he doesn't really do that often enough. On the other hand, I would say if you're looking for something to be optimistic about in terms of what he can do, what I love about him so much is not just his ability, not just his incredibly high ceiling, but the fact that even when stuff's going wrong, he'll try stuff. We saw him nearly score a brilliant goal in the second half, just after a couple of gestures hadn't come off. He had a corner fall to him at the back post, tried an overhead kick that went over the top. But just that he tried it is a wonderful thing, I think. And, we do expect more out of him, more consistently. But at least he's still striving for the very best, and that is a good thing. But I think you have to look at him and Theo at the moment and say they might be the two most vaunted players in this Milan team. They're not the best. Tijani Reinders is the guy who runs the game. He's outstanding again tonight, as he's outstanding in most games. And of course, that man who's the real leader of Milan and France, Mike Maignan, who made a string of fantastic saves. And he's really drifted into the arena of David De Gea at Manchester United. You know, I guess playing for one of the biggest names, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and making far more good saves than you would expect to have to make if you're playing for a club of that name and that stature. Of course, he's done some wonderful things here, and they're on reduced circumstances and they're not achieving a lot at the moment. But Maignan, despite having a season where his confidence has been shaken, I think, by some of the results and some of the things that have gone on, he's made some pretty bad mistakes at various points of the season. But for a huge match like this, they needed him to show up, and he really did show up, and they are well in this tie. Of course, they've got the second leg in 3 weeks' time, where it's technically Inter's home game. And that does make a difference, by the way. Loads more Milan fans here tonight, and they made a hell of a racket. So did the travelling Inter fans. Well, travelling, you know what I mean. The away fans, the Inter fans, they made a lot of noise as well. But I think it being your home game does make a massive difference, and you really maybe have to experience the Milan derby at first hand to understand that. But still, we know they won the away game in the league, Milan, and they managed to make it difficult for Inter at various points. They started, they created a few chances in the first half, despite being the second best team, and kept Inter honest. And then they started the second half here brilliantly, Milan, I thought. Great run by Fofana, and then coming through to Tammy Abraham, perhaps a surprise to some that he started instead of Santi Jimenez, who's had a great start after arriving from Feyenoord, but then struggled a little bit more in recent weeks. Abraham led the line really well. There's no surprise that despite the hit and missness of their signings this season, Milan, they really want to keep Tammy Abraham, and I think he'd benefit from that. He seems to really be enjoying it here, and it was a terrific finish to give them the lead. And then after that, Inter started knocking on the door really, really hard, but still they needed a brilliant goal by Hakan Çalhanoğlu, one that Maignan got a hand to, but Çalhanoğlu, you know what he's like, he just hit it so incredibly hard that Maignan didn't really have an opportunity to keep it out, despite getting a bit of a bottom hand feather on it. So I think Milan could have won this game. I don't think they deserved to win this game. Inter edged it, if anything, but it kept that run going for Milan. The fact that they're still unbeaten by Inter in those 4 games this season, I think gives them a little bit of a psychological edge going into this second leg. And of course, as Sergio Conceição said, very bluntly, very honestly, as he always does, this is our best chance, our shortest route of getting into Europe by winning the Coppa Italia, because we look at the table at the moment, Milan in 9th, they're in serious danger of missing out on European football altogether. Now, of course, we've had lots of Italian teams qualifying for European competitions in recent years, partly due to the coefficient being upped and upped and upped by how well Roma in particular have done in recent times. But because of that, they got the 5th Champions League place as well last season. That's very unlikely to happen this season. So the knock-on of that is Conceição is absolutely right. It's going to be an uphill struggle. They're not getting Champions League through Serie A, but they just might get themselves into the Europa League by winning the Coppa Italia. Conceição, of course, won't be here to enjoy it. It'll be another coach in charge of Milan next season. But to get themselves in European competition, I think it is absolutely vital ahead of a summer where they'll get a new coach and they'll be doing a sort of minor rebuild as well. Although, in my view, they'd be wise not to go too crazy in the transfer market, because I do think a lot of the main pieces are already here. Thanks for joining us so much. Remember to subscribe to the podcast, me and Dot Adebayo, plus guests every Thursday. Ask OTC on Friday on the podcast, where we answer your questions. Leave them below the line, or of course get at us on socials. And of course, like and subscribe. Get after us on the channel here. We have a regular video every Monday, and a few of these when we're on the road as well. Thanks for joining us.